are. Good morning. Thank you so much for hanging with us. The First Take edition of the ESPN Tournament Challenge is back. The #1 bracket game. This is what you need to do. Head to ESPN.com/bracket or download the app to fill out your bracket and follow your picks from anywhere. Brackets are open, so make those picks before they close Thursday at noon Eastern. Meanwhile, free agency is tomorrow. Lots of NFL news happening right now. Let's get right to it. Drew Brees and the Saints are in agreement on a 2-year, $50 million deal. So source confirms the deal includes $27 million guaranteed money. We know that what matters here in the NFL. The news first reported by NFL Network. Quote, "I love my team and I'm excited about the opportunity we will have together." Meanwhile, more quarterback news. The Broncos will sign 30-year-old Case Keenum to be their quarterback when free agency opens Wednesday. Sources telling our Adam Schefter Keenum finished second in the league with a 69.7 QBR last season with the Vikings. The Broncos also considered Kirk Cousins and had some discussions with Teddy Bridgewater. On that note, let's welcome in the guy, Stephen A. Smith in the house. Thanks for making it through the storm. Good
I am here. I am here.
Max in NY. Good morning, Max.
This is all I have to say about the NFL news. I mean, time will tell, Stephen A. It always does, and what it says is I'm almost always right.
That's what I was thinking. Is that what you were thinking, too?
Max is always right. Let's give him that. Let's understand the reason why you're right. Because you never take one side. You take 5. So ultimately, you got to pick one, I guess.
All
but
right, let's stay focused.
Well,
does this solve Denver's quarterback problems, guys? Stephen A.?
No, I don't think it does. I'm not sold on Case Keenum. He's completed 67.6% of his passes. He was second in the league in completion percentage behind the great future Hall of Famer, stud that he is in Drew Brees. There's no question that he had an impressive season in Minnesota, and you can't blame John Elway for making this move based on the options that he had available to him. Is Kirk Cousins coming in? No. Is Drew Brees going to exercise his rights in free agency and go there? Absolutely not. And so when you look at it from that perspective, amongst the lot with Alex Smith going to Washington and you know, and you just look at Kirk Cousins having a Vikings or the New York Jets as primary targets on his hit list. What choice do you have if you are John Elway? You've got to get some semblance of stability up in there. Demaryius Thomas can still play. Emmanuel Sanders can still play. Neither of them had a 1,000-yard season, but let's keep in mind because the quarterbacks were horrid, whether it's Lynch, whether it's Simeon, Trevor Simeon, or whoever the hell else they had up in there. None of them were good enough. Case Keenum is clearly good enough to upgrade, but when you've been that awful, there's nowhere to go but up. So I can't blame John Elway for making this move, but when we ask the question about whether or not this is the long-term solution, I need to see lengthy results. One season does not cut it for me. I think a lot of guys can succeed at the quarterback spot for 1 year. Yeah. What do you do once they really become familiar with you and they figure you out? That's the question, and that's why I'm not sold on Case Keenum. I don't blame Denver for making this move, Max, but he's not the long-term solution in my estimation. He's somebody that can hold it down for a year or two.
First, let me just address Drew Brees, Molly, if I may.
Sure.
We had a lengthy argument on this show about what Drew Brees is worth. I told you 1 or 2 years. He actually got a 1-year deal because $27 million guaranteed. That's what the top quarterback gets, about that much money per year, a franchise quarterback, the next guy up. So they basically did exactly what I told you they should do, which is give him 1 year of guaranteed money in a 2-year deal. Yeah.
Hold on. Before we go on to the second subject, don't you dare sit there with a straight face and lie. That's not what we were talking about when we debated Drew Brees. What we were debating about Drew Brees was not what he was going to get. We all surmised that with him approaching 39, 40 years of age, it was going to probably be a 2-year deal. What the discussion was what he was worth. That's what the discussion was. No, that's not necessarily so. In the NFL, you're going to have a situation where if you're approaching 40 years of age, you might get a 1 or a 2-year deal. But I told you prior to the season, you said the cliff with Brady. You said the cliff was going to approach with Drew Brees. I said that the brother's going to do his thing, and he completed 72% of his passes this season, and he would be better than at least 28 quarterbacks in the NFL, which he proved to do. That was not your argument. You're changing the narrative.
For Drew Brees?
That's right.
We talking about Tom Brady or Drew Brees?
Drew Brees.
Right. Well, Drew Brees was excellent this year. I do not think he's as good as he used to be. but he was excellent. And given his age, he got the 1 year of guaranteed money that I'd have given him, and that's what the Saints gave him. You know who beat Drew Brees in the playoffs, Stephen A., to get to the NFC Championship game?
Really? That's where we're going?
Keenum.
That's where we're going.
Drew Brees, by the way.
That's nonsense.
Anyone who wants to argue.
The miracle in Minneapolis? The miracle in Minneapolis?
I knew you were going to go there. That was a lucky throw and da-da-da-da-da. Look, they both had excellent defenses.
Who drove the Saints downfield to take the lead before the miracle happened?
I'm about to get there, too. You want to make all of our points, or can I make points, too?
Well, I'm waiting for you to make one.
I'm about to get there, too.
Instead of lying.
You brought up the miracle throw, and you're trying to say it was kind of lucky by Case Keenum. They both had good defenses. Drew Brees had the better running game, and yet Drew Brees needed to orchestrate a late score in order to take the lead in that game.
That's what winners do.
You can't take that away from Case. And then Case Keenum beat him with a throw in the playoffs. So you mean to tell me the second highest QBR in the league, a guy who was in the MVP discussion by the end of the year, Case Keenum.
Who? In what discussion?
Case Keenum.
What am I missing? Was I watching NFL? Were you watching NFL this year? I don't recall Case Keenum being no MVP candidate.
Case Keenum was an MVP candidate this year. He played at MVP caliber level. Yes, he did.
Oh, Lord.
Now, as I said, second highest QBR in the league. Wentz was one, and Wentz got hurt. So of everyone who played a full season, Case Keenum had the highest QBR in the league.
Quick question for you, Max. Yeah. Who was your MVP?
My MVP was Tom Brady. Actually.
Not Tom Brady falling off the cliff. Then you went Todd Gurley. You even mentioned Carson Wentz and said even when he went down. All right. So I just gave you three names.
Molly, guys, we're all over the place.
Molly, was anybody's name? Was Case Keenum in that discussion? Was Case Keenum in that discussion? Is it just me? Was Case Keenum in that discussion?
I get interrupted. Look,
go ahead, Max. Go ahead, Max.
Tom Brady, because he played a full season, had the most valuable quarterback season. Carson Wentz, at the time of the injury, was the MVP and better than Tom Brady. And Case Keenum was in the mix. Now, this guy was available in his physical prime, off his best season, we don't know the terms of the deal yet, but I'll bet you it's closer to a middle-class contract that John Elway talked about a couple of years ago than it is to a $100 million guaranteed type deal, right? So he always was an excellent fit, not only for the Broncos, but Case Keenum, I believe, of all the quarterbacks likely to change teams this offseason, was the best idea. He and Kirk Cousins were both in the league last year. Case Keenum had a better year than Kirk Cousins on a better team and won a playoff game. Of course he's the right idea for the Broncos.
Well, a couple of things. Like I said, he's the right idea for the Broncos. The question is long-term or short-term. I say short-term, number one. But to get back to the original points that Max, because, see, we had to go off the rails because Max went off the rails. The fact of the matter is the reason I asked those questions is because periodically we covered the entire NFL. We covered all 17 weeks. We covered all 16 games. And at no time did Max Kellerman mention that Case Keenum was an MVP candidate until today. It never
That's not true,
happened.
Stephen A.
I got to find it that somebody get the tape. It never happened.
I mentioned it several times that he's an MVP candidate.
That is not true.
Molly, do you recall me? I mean, like, we're on TV, so people
guys,
see it. That's the bottom line.
You're all putting me on the spot.
Yes, we are.
I don't like to pick sides because I love you both. I don't remember Case Keenum being a part of the MVP conversation.
Never.
I brought him up several times, as a matter of fact.
Maybe
he wouldn't get my vote, but he was in the
Yes,
mix.
maybe it was that, an afterthought.
I know this much.
But he was never your guy.
I know this much.
No,
on this show, in First Take, I will tell you this. Case Keenum has never been mentioned in the same breath of Drew Brees except today.
Max,
except
today he was in the mix and you brought him up multiple times. I believe you.
I don't.
Not yet.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay, but there's tapes.
Let's move on. Well, there ain't no damn tapes.
All right, so we're feeling good about the Broncos and the Saints right now, but we got more NFL news to get into. Former Rams wide receiver Sammy Watkins intends to sign a 3-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. A source telling our Adam Schefter Watkins' 3-year deal is worth $48 million, including $30 million guaranteed, according to ESPN and multiple reports. Now, keep in mind, it'll be Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball this coming season. Stephen A., what does this mean for the Chiefs?
Stop the presses. Stop the presses.
Oh, Lord.
Now, we all know that I'm a diehard Steelers fan, okay? We all know who the GOAT is, particularly in the AFC, because Tom Brady and the New England Patriots have owned this. Now, I will confess to you, in the interest of full disclosure, I do have a special affection for Andy Reid. I understand what I'm saying? So yeah. there's an emotional connection there. Yeah. I root for this man. I do not root against him. But I got to tell you something. If this dude, Patrick Mahomes, is anything like Hunt and Tyreek Hill and these boys, and Travis Kelce came on this show and said, I think we might have to have a discussion as to whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs should be the favorites to come out of the AFC. I mean, I think listen, man, look, Tom Ali and these boys are gone. They're changing things up defensively. Got rid of the defensive coordinator. We get all of that. Offensively, if Mahomes can ball, and they say he can ball, and he's got an arm, and he's got moxie, the whole bit. Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, now Sammy Watkins. Hey, I got to look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, they don't have a pedestrian at the quarterback spot, somebody who's all about not making mistakes and not losing as opposed to trying to win. I'm looking at the Rough Riders that they got on this squad. These brothers can ball now.
How about the defense? They had some big injuries last year.
I understand that. I understand. So we expect, especially if they get Eric Berry back, But the point is, offensively, these boys have the potential to be every bit as dynamic as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is what I'm talking about, because when you look at Watkins and Hill and Hunt and Kelce, I mean, can these boys not play? Can these boys not play? So it really comes down to Mahomes and what Mahomes is capable of. It's a lot to put on him because he really doesn't have much experience. He's only entering his second year. But if you listen to these brothers talk about him, and then you juxtapose that to who Alex Smith has been, Mr. Conservative, Mr. Pedestrian. He tried to take chances for the first time in his career this year, but it was an aberration for him, whereas this guy appears to be a gunslinger. And Andy Reid and those guys are comfortable enough to let Alex Smith go to the Redskins. I got to tell you something right now. I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs totally different than how I looked at them before free agency hit. I see what they're doing. They're trying to get a high-powered offense in KC, and I think they might pull it off. I've got to keep my eyes on them. They are one of the top 3 teams in the AFC right now.
I think it says a lot about Mahomes that they let Alex Smith go, because Alex Smith was taking chances earlier in the season, and he looked really good. And then as the season wore on, it seemed that he kind of reverted to form. But it seems the talk out of Washington is they believe they upgraded at quarterback. They think he's better than Kirk Cousins. And I think if you kind of took the temperature around the league, you'd find that Alex Smith is more highly regarded than Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. And so to let a guy like that go, it's not simply, well, he reverted to form. I think it's because you think you got the goods in Mahomes. So that bodes well for them. And if you look at whatever Mahomes can do as a rookie, as a guy really getting his first chance to air it out, see what he can do, they do have high-end skills position players everywhere you look. At tight end, a couple of receivers now who look like elite talents, at least, at running back. And Sammy Watkins is a curious case to me, because in Buffalo, okay, fine. When he was hurt, what can you do? So he's on the field, but when he was on the field, he looked like a stud to me, like an upper echelon kind of guy. Maybe not quite in the Julio Jones, Odell, Antonio Brown level, but in the level right beneath that. I'd put him right there. And Amari Cooper and guys like that, you're thinking this is the next wave. And something happened in L.A. Oftentimes you think, well, maybe he's not running his routes or whatever it is, but he was not really a featured receiver, and you figured him to be their most talented receiver. So I was a little surprised at how much money guaranteed Sammy Watkins got in this deal, considering he seemed to fall out of favor in L.A. He still opened some things up for other guys, and he made your offense better, you would think, just by his presence on the field, but he wasn't targeted very much. And now he's going to another team where the targets are going to be spread around. But unlike with the Rams, who have a nice receiving core, Stephen A., you pointed out correctly, I think, these guys are a little extra special in terms of the talent, the guys that Mahomes is going to be throwing the ball to. They got a little extra. And when you look at the skills position, elite-level talent teams, I think you have to say the Chiefs are one of those now. by the way, Alex Smith last year may have got a little bit of a raw deal because when Eric Berry went down, that was really the end of their season.
Oh,
That's really what did it for them.
He was in the MVP conversation at the
Listen,
beginning of the season.
Here's the deal. The fact of the matter is I don't want to hear that. Obviously, Eric Berry was a devastating. I know that Eric Berry was a devastating loss. I am not saying that. That has little to do with Alex Smith and his level of production or lack thereof. A matter of fact, the point is that you are supposed to be the kind of guy that has the capability to stop the bleeding. Travis Kelce is a 1,000-yard tight end. Tyreek Hill is a 1,000-yard receiver. Kareem Hunt is a 1,300-yard rusher. You have a plethora of weapons available at your disposal. I'm not saying that if your defense stinks up the joint that has no effect on the offense. That would be ignorant. What I am saying is sometimes you look at those situations to illuminate the greatness of you on the offensive side of the ball. If you are Alex Smith with those requisite weapons, because Eric Berry went down and because that had a contagious negative effect on the defensive side of the ball, where they ranked 28th in yards allowed, and Lord knows what it was against the pass. I think it was like 27th against the pass, 25th against the rush, or what have you. Their defense was obviously not impressive, but the offense had more than ample opportunity to save them, to spell for them, to give them some kind of reprieve or what have you. And if Alex Smith was that dude, with those requisite weapons, excuse me, you should be able to do something more than what he was able to do. They're telling me Homer Holmes is this dude, and I think it's the ultimate indictment against Alex Smith because you've been in the league for years. This dude, Mahomes, starts a game, okay, throws for about 284 yards, all right, and all of a sudden they talking about him like the second coming. That's the ultimate indictment against a veteran quarterback as far as I'm concerned.
Mahomes also has a big arm, and they liked him a lot in that draft. But I basically agree with you. I'm just about Alex Smith. I basically agree with you. I'm just pointing out that talent evaluators around the league and other teams value Alex Smith more, I think, than the fans do, more than you and I do. And they have a little bit more, they're privy to more information than we are, and they're looking at it with a greater degree of expertise.
Well, look at this.
So maybe we're seeing something that they're not, like, hey, guys, they're not seeing the forest for the trees. Alex Smith is too timid or, checking down when he needs to be pushing the envelope a little bit.
There's no maybe about it, Max. You're absolutely right. There's no debate there.
There's a market for Kirk Cousins that's pretty hot, and even still, even though Case Keenum now has taken a buyer off the board, and Washington seemed to think Alex Smith is better than Kirk Cousins.
Max, Alex Smith threw for over 4,000 yards, completed more than 67% of his passes, was actually third in the league in completion percentage behind Drew Brees and Case Keenum, threw 26 touchdowns. He threw just 5 interceptions on the season, and still they're saying some second-year dude with one start on his resume, we're better off with him than you. I can't think of a greater indictment against a quarterback than that. You're a veteran.
No, it means they think very highly of Mahomes.
You're a vet. Wait a minute. It's not just about thinking very highly of Mahomes. You're a veteran with those numbers, and they're telling you it basically means nothing to us. Why? Because he ain't a game changer. At some point in time, it comes down to you being able to say, give me the ball.
Listen,
I'm not going to, by the way, I'm not going to debate.
With the talent they had,
Molly, how many times do I say this to you? Give me the rock and move out the way. I'm going to take you there. They look for that from every marquee guy, and he wasn't that in Kansas City. That's why he's gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not going to debate you about that because we essentially see Alex Smith the same way. My point in bringing up Eric Berry, and you're dismissing it, well, you have enough with the offense to get it done. Russell Wilson is great. I think Russell Wilson's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, and I don't think you have an Alex Smith problem as you and I see an Alex Smith problem with Russell Wilson. And while his line was atrocious and didn't have a running game, has minimum 2 elite targets in Doug Baldwin and Jimmy Graham. And what happened when Earl Thomas went down? That was the end of their season a couple years ago. I'm saying when you lose a truly great defensive piece, it does put pressure on the offense. And if your offense is less than elite for whatever reason, that can undo your season. I think that happened to Kansas City, and I think Alex Smith took a little too much blame there.
And I think what I'm saying is I think you're speaking generically, and you're making it applicable to Alex Smith. Even though you're right, generically speaking, in terms of, okay, sometimes your defense has an effect on your offense. I get that, and you're not wrong. The flip side to it is that there are special circumstances when you, on the offensive side of the ball, have have enough to offset your defensive liabilities. And Alex Smith wasn't that dude. In Kansas City, by the way, I spoke incorrectly. They didn't get rid of Bob Sutton, the defensive coordinator. I didn't mean to say that. He's still there. They kept their defensive coordinator. But what I'm saying to you is, at the end of the day, the requisite weapons that they have, if you are a quarterback that throws for 4,000 yards and completes damn near 68% of their passes, and they still say bye to you in favor of a dude that's got one start on his career, I mean, that's the ultimate indictment. So Alex Smith, listen, the nation's capital needs to be raising their eyebrow like, damn, this is what we got? Why they let him go? Seriously. Word.
A lot of moves happening, and free agency doesn't start till tomorrow. We'll keep you up to date on all of it, but still to come. Dave Billis joins the show to break down his Final Four and NCAA final pick. And later on, we'll also talk about the new mental wellness program for NBA players. You're watching the First Take edition of ESPN's Tournament Challenge. Fill out those brackets.
Well, I normally start my school first, Wisconsin, always going up into the Sweet 16, and then we see from after that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have a Michigan bracket, then I do a Michigan win it all bracket, and then I do a bracket where I'm like, all right, let me really think about this one.
They want me to